of sadness. I am one of those freest from this passion. The story goes that when Pasmentius, king of Egypt, after his defeat and capture by Cambyses, king of Persia, saw his daughter pass before him as a prisoner, dressed as a servant and on her way to draw water, while all his friends around him were weeping and lamenting, he himself neither moved nor spoke a word, his eyes fixed on the ground. And further, seeing his son presently being led to his death, he held himself to this same demeanor. But having seen one of his friends led along among the captives, he began to beat his head and manifest extreme grief. This could be compared with what was seen lately of one of our princes, who, hearing at Trent the news of the death of his older brother, a brother in whom lay the support and honor of his whole house, and soon afterward that of a younger brother, his second hope, withstood these two assaults with exemplary steadfastness. But when a few days afterward one of his men came to die, he let himself go at this last accident, and abandoning his resoluteness, gave himself up to sorrow and mourning, so that some argued that he had been touched to the quick only by this last shock. But the truth was that since he was already brimful of sadness, the slightest overload broke down the barriers of his endurance. One might, I think, make the same judgment of our story, if it did not add that when Cambyses inquired of Pasmentius why, though unmoved by the misfortune of his son and daughter, he lacked the patience to bear that of one of his friends, he answered, "It is because this last grief alone can be signified by tears. The first two far surpass any power of expression." Perhaps related to this remark is the idea of the ancient painter who, being obliged to represent the grief of the spectators at the sacrifice of Iphigenia, according to the degrees of their concern over the death of this beautiful innocent girl, and having exhausted the utmost powers of his art, when he came to the girl's father, portrayed him with his face covered, as if no countenance could represent that degree of grief. That is why the poets show that wretched mother Niobe, overwhelmed by losing first 7 sons, then soon after as many daughters, as having been at last transformed into a rock, petrified by her woes. Ovid. To represent that bleak, dumb, and deaf stupor that benumbs us when accidents surpassing our endurance overwhelm us. In truth, the impact of grief, to be extreme, must stun the whole soul and impede its freedom of action, as it happens to us, at the hot alarm of some very bad news, to feel ourselves caught, benumbed, and as it were paralyzed from any movements, so that the soul, relaxing afterward into tears and lamentations, seems to unbend, extricate itself, and gain more space and freedom. And grief at long hard last breaks away for the voice. Virgil. He who can say how he burns, burns little. Petrarch. Say lovers who want to express an unbearable passion, "Alas, my senses, dazed, are snatched away, for soon as I have gazed on thee, Lesbia, my wits depart amazed, I can say nothing, my tongue is numb, a subtle fire runs round throughout my every limb, my ears resound with ringing all their own, both eyes are drowned in blackest night." Catullus. Nor is it in the live and most ardent heat of passion that we are fit to set forth our amorous complaints and pleadings. The soul is then burdened with deep thoughts, and the body weighed down and languishing with love. And from that it sometimes engendered the accidental failing that surprises lovers so unseasonably, and that frigidity that seizes them by the force of extreme ardor in the very lap of enjoyment. all passions that allow themselves to be savored and digested are only mediocre. Light cares can speak, but heavy ones are dumb. Seneca. The surprise of an unexpected pleasure stuns us in the same way. When, dazed, she saw me come, and with me all around, Trojans and Trojan arms, wonder made her afraid. She stiffened in mid-gaze, the warmth out of her fled. She crumples, and much later, with difficulty speaks. Virgil. Besides the Roman woman who died overcome with gladness to see her son back from the root at Cannae, Sophocles and Dionysius the tyrant who passed away for gladness, and Talva who died in Corsica reading the news of the honors that the Senate of Rome had decreed for him, we understand that in our time Pope Leo X, upon being advised of the taking of Milan, which he had ardently desired, fell into such an excess of joy that a fever got him and he died. And as a more remarkable testimony of human frailty, it was noted by the ancients that Diodorus the dialectician died on the spot, seized with an extreme passion of shame for not having been able to shake loose in his own school and in public for an argument that had been put to him. I am little subject to these violent passions. My susceptibility is naturally tough, and I harden and thicken it every day by force of reason.